What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
It's Not Your Fault is a podcast for parents, caregivers, and young people navigating the world and its challenges. Here's your host, Brandon Jones.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of It's Not Your Fault, a teen mental health podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Jones, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about destigmatizing youth mental health. And the reason why we're talking about this is that it came to me, I came across a very interesting public health campaign out of Boston. And I thought that it was fascinating. And I think this is something that we're going to see more of across the country. I think this is something that you can implement in your own town, in your own neighborhood, your own school, within the young people within your own family, is this kind of approach. So we're going to dive into that today. Believe it or not, even though mental health is probably at its all-time high in awareness, there's still a high level of stigma, a high level of angst and worry when it comes to addressing, talking about, and even sharing the mental health struggles that many people have. Therefore, today we're going to focus on is how can people do that, or what's a strategy to do that where we can lessen some of the worry and concern that comes with dealing with mental health. So the campaign that I was referencing comes out of Boston, and the campaign's called Heads Up Boston. And this was a effort to not just destigmatize youth mental health, but also empower communities through something called mental health first aid, which we're also going to dive into today. And these approaches are definitely approaches that can assist not just young people, but also adults in talking to young people about their mental and emotional health needs. So let's get into it. Mental health challenges are on the rise amongst young people. I talk about this here on the podcast all the time. Many people reference that we're in a mental health crisis. Some people say that we're at, extreme levels of, suicidality, extreme levels of depression, extreme levels of anxiety. We're dealing with a lot in today's time. But stigma, even though it's on the rise, stigma often prevents people from seeking help. In response, Heads Up Boston is a citywide campaign that is taking bold steps in normalizing conversations around mental health and empowering communities with actionable resources like mental health first aid. So again, this is an effort. This is a citywide public health effort to say we need to get better. And over the last, I would say, year and a half, I've really been pushing that we need to have more initiatives like Heads Up Boston to start to curb some of this mental health crisis that we're in. Everyone's not going to be able to afford, have the time, or even have the desire to see an actual mental health clinician. If we're being honest, even some of the mental health clinicians need to see some mental health clinicians. So it's not a golden ticket. It's not the entire puzzle. It's only a piece of the puzzle. And that's important for us to keep in mind is mental health treatment. So what we're going to have to do, I believe, is we're going to have to come up with strategies and initiatives that promote emotional and mental well-being to help kind of curb some of this crisis that we have going on in many different communities. And from what I'm seeing from Heads Up Boston, that's exactly what they're attempting to do. So, I mentioned mental health first aid. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but let me tell you a little bit more about this initiative, Heads Up Boston. This initiative aims to break barriers, educate communities, and create a culture where mental health is seen as just important as physical health. So they've recognized that when it comes to being ill, having a cold, COVID, all these things that that a lot of people are interested in doing something about physical health. When it comes to mental health, that stigma kicks in, and we get to see a little bit more of a difficult engagement around addressing the issues of mental health. So Heads Up Boston said, hey, this is our approach to dealing with it. It's a community-driven effort, and their three focuses are raising awareness, encouraging early intervention, and equipping communities with the tools and recognizing the signs of mental illness. So they want people to be informed. What are you going to see? What are you not going to see? What are you going to run into? Who can intervene? Why should you intervene? When should you intervene? These are all the things that they're aiming to answer during this time with this project, Heads Up Boston. Why do we all think that destigmatizing mental health matters? This is a very, very important thing for us to ponder on. I hear comments all the time from people who are my age and much older saying, "You guys are just weak. These kids are just soft. They're growing up here in this no winners or loser trophy era. Everybody gets a certificate, everybody gets to play. They don't learn adversity when they're young." And I would agree with that. I would agree with, if you're in a healthy family dynamic and things are going kind of copacetic the way they're supposed to, um, you are limited in some of the actual adversity that you may experience, because when you get out there in life, you're not losing games to other teams. You're not forced to, fail. You're not, there's none of these things that are happening. And it's very different than how, I may have grown up, or many parents or caregivers have grown up. And that's important for us to acknowledge and understand. But I think the comparison isn't helpful, because you're you still have to respond to kids where they're at and in today's society, and responding to them from how you grew up is not going to be helpful, because it doesn't match the lifestyle, it doesn't match the personality development, it doesn't just match how society operates today. And we have to be very, very careful amongst that. So um when we're destigmatizing youth mental health, we have to understand that stigma surrounding mental health can be devastating to a lot of different people. It can delay treatment, which is something we see all the time, especially in families. People probably needed therapy 4 or 5 years ago, but they waited, and they wait so long that many young people wait years to seek help, and many young people, their conditions can even get worse in these dynamics. So it's important for us not to just sit back and wait, delay in treatment. You have to get engaged, talk to people, and even do some of your own research and homework on how to move forward. You have isolation. Is another area, isolation. So stigma fuels feelings of shame, causes youth to withdraw from their social support networks, and it causes them to internalize a lot of what's happening. And that isolation can lead to a lot of devastating things for young people. They just feel incapable. They may have depressive symptoms. They have long periods of sadness. It can even raise anxiety. But that's something that we do see with a lot of young people when it comes to how devastating stigma can be towards mental health. And then also it impacts your ability to have future success. So untreated mental illness can affect academic performance, it can affect relationships, and this overall life potential. So it's important that we are focusing on this, and we also find solutions and strategies as much as possible to help young people deal with what they're going through, because without those things, unfortunately, we start to see them slide back into some unhealthy habits and behaviors. So, by fostering open communication, promoting mental health and emotional health education, Heads Up Boston, that's what they're doing, and their aim is to create a city, where they're asking for help is seen as a strength and not necessarily a weakness. So people don't feel like they're not doing the things that they need to do. They're not feeling like they're weak. They're not feeling like no one's there for them, because now we have a whole city backing, you know, reducing stigma so people can get out there and get the help that they need. It's pretty awesome. Now I want to talk a little bit about mental health first aid before we close out, because it was mentioned a few times, and that may be a new concept for a lot of you. But if you think about a first aid kit, right? You think about, you may get a cut or a bruise, you may need to bandage yourself up or put some ointment on, an owie, as my little kids like to say, an owie. Um, that's what we traditionally think of first aid. So if you take that same concept and you apply it to mental health, that's what we mean by mental health first aid. It is it's a very key component of making sure that people are aware of how to engage, when to engage, what to engage with, what type of interventions you should be utilizing when you're working with folks. All those things are important when it comes to mental health first aid. So let's talk a little bit about how mental health first aid actually helps young people. One, it recognizes the signs and the struggles of mental health. It includes anxiety, this includes depression, and this also includes substance use. So when people are trained, and usually they have what they call trained trainers, where young people can be trained to have conversations with other young people. Um, many times those young folks do not know how to recognize those signs. So being able to recognize them is very important. One other thing that youth mental health first aid does is it offers immediate support, especially in crisis or emergency situations. You have somebody there with you. They're talking to you. They're talking you out of things. They're talking you into things. They're assisting you as best as possible to get the help that you need in the moment. Sometimes it's not always during crisis, but it can be a very crisis heavy. It's more on people who just deal with the day to day that I think we'll see when it comes to mental health first aid. And then the third thing is connecting young people to professionals. Um, I feel like a broken record. I always say that on the podcast because I'm always going back to, seeing a professional, seeing a professional. I know that it's expensive. I know that it takes time. I know that it can be difficult talking to a stranger, but from my experience, many of my clients' experience, many of the things that are sharing in something called supervision, which is when clinicians get together to problem solve and unleash and relax a little bit. Um, when we have those types of things, we're discussing, what we're seeing, what's happening, and how to help move people forward. And that's important to keep that in mind as well. So connecting young people to professionals who are doing that can make a huge difference. And we can't be afraid to talk to a professional or quote unquote stranger about your mental and emotional well-being. So just like CPR, individual is responds to their physical emergencies, and what mental health first aid does is it helps to empower you so that you're not always responding to those mental health challenges that you have. That you're not always responding in a way where you're alone or you don't know what to do. There's somebody out there that can talk to you and assist you and even be in your peer group, which is also pretty awesome. So what are the benefits of youth mental health first aid? It improves early intervention. Sometimes, your friends know things that other people may not know, and they may be able to intervene a lot quicker, give some really good advice, help somebody out. It helps spread the word about mental health awareness. So now you know that it's out there, what's happening, it's good. You can even let people know that you're still doing well by, you know, utilizing mental health first aid and disclosing some of the things that you have going on. And then lastly, you can advocate for youth mental health. When we're all in this together, when we're all trained, one thing that this allows us to do is to be an advocate in how we model our actions, an advocate in the things that we say, and an advocate in the things that we stand up for. And it's important for us to do this. This work is important. And I think that the more things like this, up, like the Boston Project here, Heads Up Boston. I almost forgot the name there. Things like Heads Up Boston. What this allows us to do is to curb this mental health crisis that young people are going through, push people to practice well-being habits. And you don't always have to see a professional to do that, but that option is there. But why not be able to have a nice quality conversation with friends or even family members, where you can understand that there's something that you can do about your mental health today. So if you want to get involved in either Heads Up Boston or if you want to get involved in youth mental health, I encourage you to just go to your favorite search engine, mine's Google, and type in those two things. Heads Up Boston is an organization. They have a website. And then also if you want to type up um, youth mental health first aid in Google, you'll find tons of stuff. Now, a lot of it, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it's going to be to invite you to become a trainer, but you can find other trainings that are happening, whether at a school or in a community center or something of that nature. They're out there. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for today. I want to encourage you all to, do the best small habits that you can every day to get better. It's okay to rest. Rest is very important, but, don't have too much rest. Make sure you're being actively engaging with your mind and your brain as much as possible. Now, if you like today's podcast and you want to check out more, there are 3 places that you can connect with us at. The first place is the Facebook group. It is not your fault. podcast. You put that in the search engine, our Facebook group will pop up. Go ahead and like it, follow it. We'll let you on in. That's a good place to ask questions, engage with other people, and see some of the material that I write and do podcasts on. The second place that you can find us is my actual personal website, jegna.org. That's www.jegna.org. That's www.jegna.org. Jegna.org is where you can find me, ask me questions directly, or solicit some of my services. And then the last place you can find us, and this is only if you think that I'm a cool person, or maybe you want to check out some other cool podcasts, you want to go to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. That's ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com, where you'll see myself and the whole team of podcasters there give you quality content. And with that, folks, that's going to wrap us up. I want to encourage you to be safe, be constructive, and be well. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
To check out previous episodes of It's Not Your Fault, or to learn more about Brandon Jones, log on to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.